All right, cool. Well, thank you so much, for joining. And today's topic, as you guys saw earlier, I sent out, is the art of saying no. Art of saying no. And I feel, saying no is such an important skill in our life. I would actually say it's probably the most important skill because it is the primary way we make choices. And our life is basically a string of choices we make. So sometimes our life, and most of the time, the quality of our life depends on our ability to say no, right? I know personally, better than this anyone else, actually, the consequence of not being able to say no. Some of you know I was married earlier and I got divorced. And the reason I married my ex is because when he proposed to me, I could not say no. And I did not know how to say no. And in retrospect, this seems so stupid, right? Like really, why would you marry somebody just because you don't know how to say no? But it's my reality. I mean, of course, I know how to, but I know a lot of us make life-altering choices because we don't know how to say no. Example, someone can't say no to their date when they ask for sex, or a person can't say no to alcohol or drugs from a friend, or someone can't say no to their boss who asks them to keep doing the work that limits their growth, or you can't say no to hanging out with people who make you miserable, right? The list goes on, small or large. Saying no is a very important skill. And so let's talk today about the art. It's an art of saying no because our life gets shaped by it, right? So there are two ways of saying no, right? One is indirectly, one is directly. Now, indirectly is you say no by saying yes to something. So, for example, when you say yes to something, we by default are saying no to everything else, right? So, example, you go to watch a movie. Let's say you are watching Frozen, the movie. So you say yes to that movie, and obviously now you can't watch any other movie. So you've already said no to all other movies because you said yes to that one specific movie. Or let's say when you say, I want strawberry ice cream, you said no to all other flavors because you said yes to strawberry, right? Or when you say yes to marry someone, right? You by default have said no to all other people. So this is something we are actually good at, right? Like when we know what we want, we say yes to that, and hence we say no by default to everything else indirectly. Now, the second way of saying no is directly, right? Saying no to that very specific thing. So, for example, if you go to a movie hall and the ticket master asks you, hey, do you want to watch Lion King? You say no. You want to watch Frozen? You say no. You want to watch Iron Man? You say no, right? You're saying no to that thing that is being asked. And so you are saying directly no to the option being presented. And that is what I want to focus on, right? How do you say no to the option that is in front of you directly? Not the indirect version where you say yes to one and hence say no to everything else. So let's first understand why we struggle so much and so often to say no, right? There are a couple of reasons. One, we misunderstand what it is, like what saying no actually is. So when we think of no as complete and forever, right? If I ask you, hey, do you want to eat strawberry ice cream right now? And you say no. It does not mean you will never eat strawberry ice cream ever, right? It also does not mean that you will not eat any ice cream ever, right? But sometimes when somebody else asks us and we start saying no to them, in our mind, we think no is complete and forever. And it makes it hence hard to say no because you're saying no to so many things, like foreverness of it. But we'll talk about how to reframe this problem, right? So it's hard because we misunderstand, right, what saying no is. Second reason it's hard for us to say no is because we misunderstand the consequences of saying no, right? And there are many consequences that we misunderstand. What are the social consequences, the relational consequences, the self consequences, the thing consequences? So, social consequences, right? So, the social consequence we think or misunderstand is the threat of being ousted from the social tribe. And by the way, this is a very biological response, right? As human beings survived by being part of tribes. So let's say your friend asks you for going out and they ask you, hey, do you want to join tonight? And you feel obligated to say yes. Why? Because you think or you assume if you say no to them, you're out of the social circle, the cool friend circle, right? You won't be invited ever again. So that social threat forces you to say yes. Relational threat, right? Threat to the relationship of the person who's asking you. So you feel if you say no, that person will no longer be your friend, for example, right? So there's a relational threat that you misperceive sometimes. Then there is a self threat, the threat to your own identity and worth. Why? Because, let's face it, our identities are a reflection of, how people perceive us, right? I am not what I think I am. I am what I think you think I am, right? So like my idea of myself is based on my idea of what you think about me. So this is very important. Our identities are a reflection. So we are afraid when we say no, other person is going to dislike us, right? And our worth is dependent on the other person liking us. So if my worth is dependent on you liking me, and if I say no and you dislike me, I'm not going to take that risk because it's my worth, right? Sometimes we are misguided because we think I'm superior. Like, oh, I'm the poor savior soul who is the only person who will help you and say yes. And I'm better than everybody else because other people are like inferior to me who are saying no, and I'm superior by saying yes. So there is a misguided identity here. There is also a misguided meaning of saying no because what we think is people who say no are evil. Like people who say no are mean, and I'm not mean. So I identify as a nice person. So nice people say yes. I'm a nice person, so I will say yes, right? So it's misguided. So that's the self-threat. And the last threat I say is threat to the thing that is being asked, like the thing you care for. So example is, let's say if somebody asks you to water their plants, okay? And you care for plants and so much, like you're a green person, and so you feel if you don't water, the plants will die. So you don't care about that person or your identity, but you care about that thing, so you will do it, right? Or I ask you to donate money to a charity to feed the children, and you care about children poverty so much that you will say yes because you care for that thing. And if you don't say yes, the kid is going to die, right? Or of food or hunger. So it is that, again, misperceived notion of the threat to that thing that you care for. So those are the like 4 things that are misperceived consequences, right? What is the social threat, right? Being ousted from the cool group. What is the relational threat? That person will defriend you. What is the self-threat? Like, who are you if you say no? Are you mean, evil? What is your value and worth? And what is the threat to the thing that you're saying no to? Right? So sometimes we don't really ask ourselves. We just go with the assumption of these threats. Now, I do know there is a real threat sometimes because maybe the person will break the friendship with you, right? Maybe the person who's asking you has more power than you, and there is a consequence. For example, a parent is punishing a child, or a boss does not promote the employee, right? So there are sometimes real consequences, but more often than not, they're misperceived threats because of the biological wire that we have. The last reason why we struggle so much that we can't say no is because we just don't know how to, right? Let's face it. Our cultures don't encourage us to say no. Our parents don't teach us how to say no, right? Like, for example, when you are a child, it's actually quite easy for children to say no. So example, if a parent asks their child saying, hey, do you want to eat broccoli? You say, no, I don't like the taste of it. Or do you want to play with that kid? No, he's mean to me. I don't want to play. Or, hey, do you want to hug your uncle? No, I feel uncomfortable, right? Kids actually have an easy time saying no. But then we, our parents, society, and friends, they mold us to say yes. to fit in, to be polite. So no one has actually taught us how to say no. And we also, unfortunately, don't have good examples around us, of people who are saying no skillfully. So neither we know anything about it, neither we have people around us who know anything about it, right? It's like blind leading blind. And our society doesn't permit us or encourage us to say no, especially the Eastern cultures, right? Because saying no is considered impolite in those cultures. So where will you learn from, right? So we fall into the habitual pattern of saying yes, and then when we say no, we feel very uncomfortable because we just don't know how to. So these are all the reasons we struggle, right? This is a real struggle, a genuine struggle, where we don't know what saying no is. We don't know, we misperceive the consequences, and we also don't have the skill set. So it's okay if you are struggling, if I'm struggling. This is a real struggle for all of us. So let's talk about then how to say no. So one thing is, let's reframe, right? We talked about that when you say no to a strawberry ice cream does not mean you're saying no to it forever. Let's reframe what no is. It is not binary, and it is not all encompassing, right? In fact, saying no is like a dance. It's like a creative exercise in creating what I call the new yes option, right? The new yes option. So it's like somebody gave you a multiple choice, right? So, hey, do you want to eat strawberry ice cream? And in your mind, you only had two options, yes, no. But there is a third way to think about this problem statement is, what is the new yes option? And so let me give you an example, right? So let's say your friend calls you and say, hey, let's go for Thai dinner tonight. And you're afraid that if you say no, it will break her heart and she may defriend you, right? So what are you going to say? So you can say something like this: hey, I care for you and I really want to spend time with you. Just can't do it tonight because I have this deadline or whatever you're working on. But what about a different day of the week or this month or week? What would work for you, right? You're asking your friend. Also, you can say, hey, I'm also not a big fan of Thai. Is there a different cuisine you can like for example, Indian or any other cuisine? So you're negotiating, you're creating the new yes option, right? So sometimes no is binary and finite. For example, yes, I'm saying no to marrying you, right? I don't want to marry you. It's a finite thing. There's no negotiation here. Or I'm saying no to drinks or drugs because I don't do it. But even in those cases, you may be able to craft an option if you want, let's say, to stay friends with the person or to hang out with them without doing the drinks, right? So again, it's not binary and it is not forever. There is this creative dance of creating the new yes option. So how do you do that, right? So you do create the new yes option by clarifying and negotiating on what, when, and who. So what, right? So you can ask questions on, what is it that you're asking me, right? And you negotiate on that, on the boundaries, on the scope of the problem being asked. You clarify on what the ask is versus what the need is. So let's say your mom misses you and really wants your company. And she asks you, hey, can you call me every Sunday, 10 o'clock morning? So that's the ask. But you can understand the underlying need that all she wants is like your companionship. So you can say, hey, mom, Sunday morning doesn't work for me and every week doesn't work for me. But how about every 2 weeks I'll call you and we'll spend a nice 2 hours, maybe cooking together or watching a movie together on FaceTime, something, right? Again, you understand the ask versus what the need is, and then that allows you to craft a new yes option. Example is somebody asked me the other day, hey, can you do this free workshop? And I asked them, what is it that their real goal is? And once I understood it, I actually gave them some resources which actually sufficed their needs, and they did not need the workshop that they were asking for. Second thing you ask is who or why me, right? Is this an opportunity that aligns with your goals? Is this of something that you're interested in? Is this a skill you have, right? Is this a priority for you? Or is somebody else better suited for the task? So example, somebody asked me the other day, hey, can you take a mock interview for me? for the specific role, right, in my company. And I said, hey, I'm actually not even in that role, but I know somebody else who's in that role. So that person may be better suited to take this interview. So I just pointed them to somebody else. So I did not say, no, I can't do it. And it was a full stop. I said, hey, I can't do it, but I think this other person may be better suited for it. So again, you're creating a new yes option by redirecting them to a different who, asking why me? Am I the right person to do this? And the last one is when, right? Why now? Like, what is specific about the time? Like dinner. Like, does it have to be tonight? Can it be this week sometime? Can it be this month sometime? Right? Is this a once in a lifetime opportunity, or is this a recurring thing? Right? Is this time sensitive? Is there some deadline to this? And so, example, like, can somebody asked me, hey, can you do this next week? And it needed a lot of work on my side. So I asked them, hey, what are my options here? And when I understood that more, I realized there is no real deadline to it. It could be postponed to next month. So we negotiated, and I said, okay, how about we do it next month? And that gives me more time to actually do the right job because I was interested in it. So this is the reframing of no, right? It is not binary, yes, no. And it is not forever and all encompassing. There is this dance, this negotiation, this creative exercise where we craft the new yes option by understanding the what and reframing it, by understanding who and maybe redirecting it, and understanding when and figuring out the timelines and maybe postponing it. So you like, your answers may look like, hey, no for now, but yes for future. Like, can we do a rain check? Yes for now. Hey, I'm only saying this once because you really need my help, but I will not do this again. No for this, but yes for that, right? Hey, I'm saying no to this, but I will definitely join you next time. Or no for whole, but yes for part, right? So I'm saying, hey, I can't help you do everything, but I can help you with a part of it. So there's just so many creative options here, right? So it's again not binary. And the last, and probably more important, is some principles that we need to remember about saying no. The first and most important is our right. We have permission to say no, right? Like, in America, we have all these rights, like, of amendments, like Bill of Rights, as we call it. And I like to offer to my clients, I say this, hey, I give you a new right. Here, this is a new amendment to our Constitution. Right to say no, right? You have the right to say no. The other person has the right to ask. And you have the right to say no, yes, or negotiate and craft the new yes option. So, but you have the right to say no. It is yours to take. The other person has the right to ask. I have the right to say no. Second is permission to learn and make mistakes and learn how to say no, right? It's a skill. Most of us don't have it. It's like skiing. Like, you have the permission to go learn how to ski. Similarly, you have permission to practice and fail and learn how to say no. And if you make mistakes, and let's say you actually, spoil a relationship because you said no at the wrong time to the wrong thing, you have the permission to recover from it. You can go and say sorry, because again, you're learning how to say no, and you will not be perfect at it. And then you can recover from your mistakes and learn from it, but you have permission to practice and make your mistakes, right? So this is the first, like, permission is the most important thing when it comes to saying no. The second is, start by thanking the opportunity that was presented to you. And this is not superficial. This is really, like, deeply. A friend of mine the other day asked me to babysit their 2-month-old baby, okay? And I don't have kids. I've never babysat kids. And I was really annoyed. I was like, why are they asking me? And, like, I have to babysit a kid. And, somebody reminded me that just by them asking you, they are showing how much they trust you. Because for somebody to give up their 2-month-old baby in your care means they trust you that much, even though you have never actually had your own babies. So just taking that in, that opportunity that has presented itself, and say, what is here? They want to spend time with me. They trust me. They want me to succeed. They think I can do the job, right? They really want me to be part of the group or the party. Like, what is it here? What is it here to be grateful for? Like, really ask yourself. Like, once you actually see that, you honor it. You acknowledge it to the other person. You say, hey, I really care for it. And thank you so much for, having so much trust in me. and I really care for, our relationship, this opportunity, whatever it is. You honor that, you acknowledge that out loud. And then you figure out, what do you want, right? And if you don't know in that moment, by the way, you can always buy time, right? Very, very rarely is it I need an answer like right this second. You can always buy time. Hey, can I get back to you? And you clarify that whole what, when, who, right? You negotiate, you find the new yes option. And then as you're going about all of this, you acknowledge the discomfort because you are not good at it. The other person probably is uncomfortable while you're negotiating with them, because negotiation is uncomfortable, let's face it. So you acknowledge the discomfort and you sit with it. You don't try to soothe yourself and escape it, right? You sit with the discomfort and you play in that moment. And if the other person really cares, by the way, you rope them in to support you. Say, hey, I'm learning how to say no, and I really need a safe place to practice. And traditionally, I've said yes to you for everything, but I'm going to try to say no to you a little bit just to practice. Please don't hate me. Please negotiate with me if you're willing. Rope them in if they're good friends. Why not, right? We all need a support group to learn. Mock practice it, like to get the jitters out of your body. Like it's like in your cells. You need to know, how does it feel to say no. Like sometimes when I have to say no and it's a very crucial conversation, I actually practice in the mirror. I actually say it out loud, so my body can feel the way it feels to say no. Like, do you know what it feels to say no? Like, how does it feel in your body? So practice, right? And like I said, going back, this is a skill. The more you practice, the better you get at it. Because when you say no to one thing, it doesn't mean you're saying no to everything, right? It's like, if you think of choices as this like 20 doors presented to you, right? You can only say yes once. Because when you say yes to one thing, you by default say no to everything else. So saying yes is actually a very finite thing. But when you say no to one door, you still have so many doors to go through, right? So actually saying no is an easier option, because saying yes is only like you take that option and that's it. But when you say no to one movie or one flavor of ice cream, or saying no to marry one person, you still have so many more options to go. So think of that, right? So saying no is always like the smaller of the things, versus saying yes is the bigger of the things. So saying no should actually be an easy compared to saying yes. So I'm going to pause there and just quickly recap, and then we'll go into discussion, by saying that, saying no is a skill, and it really defines the choices and the quality of our life. And, we talked about, we struggle because we misunderstand, we make it binary, we misunderstand the consequences, and we also don't have skills. So the best thing is reframe saying no as actually creating a new yes option. And you can do that by, negotiating the what, the who, the when, right? You have the permission to say no. You can find help, and rope the person to say no. Really be thankful for the opportunity being presented to you, and acknowledge the discomfort, honor the opportunity. And from there, you will be in a place of creative resourcefulness, versus, oh my God, I have to say no, and like I'm in a survival mode, right? Versus, oh, I'm going to find a new yes option, and this is amazing opportunity. I can't say yes to this, but I can say yes to something else, right? So be in that space. So I'm going to pause here. Hopefully this is, plant some seeds in your brain on how to go about saying no, and maybe we'll discuss some questions.